You've seen the work we've put in, day out, challenging myths, debunking old wives' tales, and rejecting poor breeding practices. We've dedicated years of research, study, and real-world experiences to perfect the art and science of breeding. And we do it for one reason: to bring you the best, most accurate information possible. Because you know what? You deserve nothing less. But to keep this mission growing week after week, we need you. If you found value in the Bred to Perfection podcast, please take a moment to rate and review us. A 5-star rating and a quick comment might seem small, but every review helps us reach more breeders who need to hear the truth, who want to learn what it really takes to create, improve, and maintain top quality strains. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement, and you are a vital part of it. If you believe in what we're doing, if you want to help others wake up and become better breeders, push this podcast to the top. Rate, review, and share. Together, we make a difference. Thank you for standing with us. Now, let's get to work. Entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy. The Breeders Academy proudly presents Bred to Perfection with Kenny Troiano, a show for serious breeders.
Whether you are looking to create a new strain or simply improve an old one, you have come to the right place.
Daddy, I want more chickens.
Oh, boy.
Now, here's your host, Kenny Troiano.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bred to Perfection. My name is Kenny Troiano, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to helping you become a better breeder and taking your strain to the next level. That's right, my friends. It doesn't matter if you are brand new to breeding or you've been breeding for many years. There is something all of us can do to improve our fowl for future generations.
Science. When you need it and don't have it, you sing a different tune.
As far as game fowl are concerned, I'll tell you something. The Grove white hackles that Tommy Serrano has in New York, I am 100% convinced in my mind that those Grove white hackles, and I have them here in my yard, they've been purebred for that amount of time. They come true to form, and I even phoned you at 3 o'clock in the morning. We were talking about white-legged birds and we were talking about white-eared feather. Those Grove white hackles have been bred pure for well over 200 years here. And there are a lot of people that have looked after the different breeds they're around. The leapers that are here, if you buy a true leaper from anybody here, you'll see that they have the same traits. They look the same.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot of them are avoiding the science. They're not using proper breeding programs. They think by adding new blood every 5 years or refreshing the blood, all they're doing is recombinating the genes. I don't think we're going in a really good direction.
Old guys don't do it, man. Old guys don't do it. You can see the two game families that they've bred pure for years and years. They're smaller chickens. They're not 5.5 pound roosters.
That's selection.
They are between 4 pounds.
I know me and you have a problem with inbreeding.
12.
Me and you talk about inbreeding a lot. We're always on the opposite side of the coin when it comes to inbreeding. And a lot of people want to blame inbreeding for the size of their birds. A lot of times they're just not selecting them properly. A lot of these guys have a good idea what they want the cocks to look like, but have no idea. And I talk to these guys, Tony. They can describe what the cock should look like, and they're pretty close most of the time, but they cannot describe what a proper hen looks like. And so they end up selecting smaller and smaller hens to the point they wake up one morning, all of a sudden they got a bunch of small chickens, and they blame it on inbreeding. Inbreeding depression is a funny thing. If they got inbreeding depression, the chicks don't hatch. If they do, they're lethargic. And if they grow, they usually don't reproduce. So a lot of people want to blame it on inbreeding depression when it's just selection.
Kenny, you've learned a little bit over the years, eh? I actually believe in that statement.
Did I change your mind about inbreeding? Are we on that?
Look, I've always been line bred. I've never
I know
inbred.
you don't like inbreeding. We talk about that a lot.
I've
man.
always line bred, but if you keep on line breeding, they will come smaller as well.
I don't know about that.
I'll tell you what's surprising is Tommy Serrano sent me a Grove white-hackled hen, a little pullet, years back. That was the one that I began with here. She was a pullet, and he asked me to miniaturize them, put the blood in, and breed and manufacture a breed of Grove white-hackled. I'll tell you what happened with that pullet. She carried on growing, and at the end of 2 years, she was a normal-sized hen.
That shows you selection right there.
That was it.
Yeah.
That's all that happened. She carried on growing. And normally chickens will only grow up until about a year old or a little bit more than that. So she carried on growing, and then Tommy sent me a rooster to go with her. And I now have Grove White, and let me tell you, I'm really happy with them. They're good, honest fowl, and they breed true to form. I'm very happy to have them in my yard.
I'm going to work on you. One of these days, I'm going to get you to look at inbreeding a little bit different. Here's what's happening today. And they use those words, don't change the breed. Okay, their idea of not changing the breed is accepting all the faults they come with, instead of fixing the faults and understanding what the true type and conformation of the bird is. But they think they come with certain faults, then that's the breed and that they shouldn't change it. You got to breed for purity. You got to breed for perfection. That's the whole idea of standard perfection. But they think that the idea of not changing them is accepting the faults that they come with.
No. Faults and disqualifications. There's one thing that people won't understand. Disqualification point like a duck toe. You don't try and breed away from duck toe. You take that chicken out, you knock its head off, and you put him into the pot.
That's a defect, but it's like white in the wings. They think that's as part of the breed. So by accepting the white in the wings, then they're not changing the breed. That should be part of it. But that's one of the things they use, in that if I try to eliminate the white, then I'm changing the breed. They got this ass backwards, Tony.
Look, let me tell you something. Go back here in America, there are still some very good families around. And if you look around, you'll find they're good families. The Grove white tackles from Tommy Serrano, and I'm not trying to make Tommy out to be a hero, because Tommy didn't start with the Grove white tackles. He got them, he managed to obtain them. But the Grove white tackles, even though they come yellow-legged, there is no white in the feathers or in the tail. Now, we have another dilemma here, because we have what was known as the Jimmy East Senior. He had black-breasted light reds that carried white and white sickles in the feather. And what they've done is a lot of people who had the Jimmy East Senior birds, or the slick lizards, the black-breasted light reds, those two families, they both carried white in the sickle. So what had happened was they bred genetically then. So now we have two families. We have two families in the south that carry white in the tail. And then you've got the two other families, the family that I got in Oklahoma and the family that I got from Tommy Serrano in New York. There's no white whatsoever in their wings or in the tail. Not at all. And what's the big thing? Is the two families that I'm talking about now that don't have the white in they're the oldest families. Because the Grove white tackle family, that you go back at the various people that had them, they've been bred pure for over 200 years. If they've been bred for that amount of time, they've stayed pure and haven't sported out any white feathers. That's the way that they should be. That's the breed.
Okay, let's talk about the progressive white. Besides the name, which I have a big problem with, this is probably the one that I think is the biggest detriment. Now, what they want to do, their idea of keeping the bird the way it is, not changing it, is allowing white in the standard. Now, a lot of people don't realize, but white is a deleterious gene. Oh, you know what, Tony? Let me do this first, and then we'll talk about it on the other end.
Hang on, I can tell you.
Let me show you a video, then we can talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, let me do this real quick. A conversation that Brian Reeder and myself had that really explains what progressive white is and the detriment of it. And then me and you can discuss it on the other end. Hold on. Here we go. I do have a question about the recessive white. So we look at a dominant white, we breed it to a red, we get a red pile. Now, if you breed a recessive white to a red, what do you get?
A red? Who knows? Depends on what's under the recessive white. But you don't get white.
What about red splash?
Oh, absolutely.
They look just like a blue splash, except they're red where the blue was.
What breed is it in?
American game.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Do they feather out like that from the first, or do they grow into that?
No, right from the beginning. They almost look spangled when they first start, but as they grow and develop, then they basically look splash.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're describing. That's progressive whitening.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Kill it. Burn it with fire. Kill them all.
So that's not splash, that's progressive white. Okay, that's good to know.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the devil. Kill it. Avoid like the plague.
And they also threw what I call spangled, but what you call modeling.
That's modeling. I know in games that's the variety is called spangled, but genetically that's modeling. And it also has that horrible disease. It has the progressive whitening.
Yeah. I couldn't get those things to come out consistent, so I gave up on them. I couldn't stand the fact that they were all over the place.
Yeah, I hate that too. The only way I would tolerate a flock like that is if they had other super traits, like they great layers, great personality, extremely disease resistance. Then I don't care what they look like. But the problem is when you've got the progressive whitening, that is going to make them less hardy.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to talk about the progressive white, because we're all, I'm not going to say all of us, but a lot of us are fighting that. And they don't really understand the detriments of it.
And that's what I refer to as a mess. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Those may be great birds. And if those were the hardiest birds and those were the strongest birds, those are the birds I would keep. But genetically, those are a mess. And over the course of 20 or 30 years, I'd clean those birds up in one direction or the other. If you have a line that's a mess, like the Sarama people, they have the ultimate mess right now, the biggest mess on earth.
Oh, no
But
kidding.
what that means is they have the option. They could take one pair that are heterozygous for every gene they carry and carry 14 different genes. As my ancestors would have said, 11 different genes, 11 genes. And they could take those and select up 15 varieties out of.
Yeah. Let me tell you this real quick. This will lead us right into progressive white and dominant and recessive white. Okay. I'm a judge, a certified judge with the American Game Fowl Society. So I do a lot of the game fowl shows. And this one particular area that I'd go do shows at, this guy had great birds. Type conformation, they're beautiful. Color, they actually were beautiful. But because they had some white in the tail and a little white in the wing, they didn't represent their breed. And he was getting really upset. He goes, every time I come in here, I feel like my birds are just as good as those, and I'm not even placing. If I have two birds and they both have the same type and conformation, but one has the proper color, I'm going to pick it. That white looks beautiful. It's attractive in some ways, but it's wrong for its breed.
And I don't know how those standards are written, but if you're going by APA, ABA standards, a positive white feather on a bird that doesn't call for it's a disqualification.
That's right. And so I told him that. I didn't see him the next year, but the year after that, he started coming back. And Brian, his birds were beautiful, no white. And I said, how'd you do that? He goes, I just started selecting away from it, selecting the ones were proper color, got rid of the other ones, and they started coming out like this. He started winning.
Yeah, it can be done. There's no reason not to do it. Anyone who has this segregating. Now, here's the problem. I'm guessing he was showing fairly young birds, like under 2 or 3 years, right?
About 2 years old.
Yeah, exactly. If you've got progressive whitening in the stock, even when you get it bred out to where it doesn't show up in the young birds, a bird 5, 6, 7, 8 years old is still going to get that white shot in the tail and in the wing feathers. It's really hard to eliminate that damn thing completely. Like almost impossible. The whites, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of white. Of course, there's dominant white. And then there's a more common form of recessive white. But there's 5 or 10 other forms of recessive white as well. And the way you can tell the different recessive whites apart is that the true recessive white that is notated with the letter C, it's a small c, turns any color you put it on white. It gets no color leakage whatsoever. There's another form of recessive white that comes out of birds from Japan, and it came out of white silkies and white phoenix. And a lot of times if you've got red with that, not a lot of times, every time, if you've got red with that form of recessive white, you get leakage. The hens will be solid white, but they'll have almost pink breasts if they're a red. The roosters will have leakage in the hackle and the shoulder. Dominant white, on the other hand, affects eumelanin, but does not as strongly affect pheomelanin. So if you've got sex-linked pheomelanin, gold, and you add dominant white, 1 dose makes it a little paler, 2 doses makes it a little paler. But if you've got mahogany, it's homozygous for mahogany, it's got no dilution factors, then you can get an intense red, even with homozygous dominant white, and they'll breed true that way forever. And then there's the third problem white, which is the progressive whitening. And the problem is that the old breeders back in the old days, when they were trying to make stay white birds, crossed in all kinds of things to their recessive white and dominant white lines. So if they had dominant white on silver and they had brassy silvers, then they would start throwing in blue, and they would start throwing in Colombian, and they throw in barred, and they throw in this, and they throw in that. And then the same if they had the Japanese form of recessive white, they would start throwing in silver, they throw in Colombian, they throw in barred, they throw in blue, they throw in dun. And then inadvertently in this process, and of course, because we know it's ubiquitous, all the games will pop up with this progressive whitening. The red-shouldered Yokohama is made on progressive whitening. It does not have dominant white. It is strictly, in fact, you can select the progressive whitening up until it's just a solid white bird. If it's on silver, you can select it up on a red bird until you've got a pile imitation. Because if you look at red-shouldered Yokohamas, you would think that's a red pile. But when you test those, you do not have dominant white. You don't get any of the effects of dominant white out of any red-shouldered Yokohamas. And I've worked with red-shouldered Yokohamas from America. I've worked with 3 different lines from America. And I've also worked with them imported from Germany. And it's the case with them all. They're all made with progressive whitening. And of course, that's because if you look at the old paintings and art of the old Inagadori and other long-tailed fowl from Japan, you see progressive whitening in them because they were bred out of games. They're clearly a game-based type bird. So what they did to make the red-shouldered coloration is they had a thing called goshiki, which is a silver mahogany. It's a red shoulder with a cream hackle and saddle. And so if you add progressive whitening to goshiki, or 5-colored, then what you end up with is a white breast and white tail with a cream-colored saddle and hackle and a red shoulder. And then, of course, the Germans had imported birds that they eventually bred up to be red-shouldered Yokohamas, and they were crossing things like the black-tailed red Minohiki, which is the precursor to the Yokohama. The Minohiki is the actual ancestor. So if you cross something like the goshiki with a lot of the progressive whitening with something like the black-tailed red or the shoujo version of the Minohiki, you're going to end up getting birds that are ginger with silver and with this progressive whitening. And so what they did in time was select up birds that have white hackles, white tails, white main wings with a red shoulder and a red body, and they're spangled on top of that. They probably used a little spangled Hamburg in them, would be my guess. So that ends up being then the red-shouldered Yokohama, which to me is the most beautiful phenotype in poultry. It's the most advanced. It's one of the most beautiful. Those red and white color combinations are always my favorite color forms in chickens. But the red-shouldered Yokohama is made with the progressive whitening, and it is basically a disease. That's not a phenotype. It's a disease. The reason I say that is because when it's present, it not only is reducing eumelanin in the feathers, the production of melanins has to do with the production of the organs of the body as well. Melanin is doing a lot other than just coloring hair or feathers or skin. And so it just so happens that this progressive whitening factor also causes problems with cell production in the body. So when you start getting progressive whitening, the stronger it is in a line, the more problems you start to see in the birds that have that line. And so you cannot produce a good, strong, hardy line if you've got a lot of progressive whitening. Now, progressive whitening is not a straightforward gene, even to the point that I suspect it may be based in RNA and be something more like an epigenetic factor than an actual gene. It does not segregate in a normal manner. The fact that you can have birds that don't show it for 2 or 3 years, and then some of them it'll start showing up and others it doesn't. We could say some have the gene and some don't, but I don't think that's it. I think it's an environmental factor that triggers it. I think it's epigenetic. And I think basically something like the red-shouldered Yokohama then is where they have taken this problematic factor and selected it to where there are so many modifications to it that it's become a visual white phenotype. And because it's not a straightforward gene, because it's some kind of weird complex of factors, it is extremely difficult to get rid of. I try to tell people all the time when I see it in their lines, you've got to get that out of there. Maybe even just quit with that line. If you've got other lines you can go to, and every time, oh, no, this is the best one. Oh, it's no problem. Oh, it won't come back. Oh, I'll breed it out. And then sure enough, I'll see a picture of their birds, and there the whole ass end of the bird is white. Just a few years later, I will see birds like, say, cochins, one white tip on a, say you've got like a, I don't know, partridge cochin, and you've got one white tip on a foot feather. That's progressive whitening, and I know it. And I've pointed that out to people. You've got it. Don't use that bird. Oh, but it has the best comb. It has the whatever. Fill in the blank. Whatever they're fetishizing. And then 3-4 generations later, I'll see a picture of their birds, and half their males have white tails. Because it's so difficult to get rid of. And to be honest, the only way I have ever gotten rid of it is to completely call out lines that have it.
I have a family that I call my Sangreal line, and it did have the progressive white. And I was just very adamant about getting rid of anything that showed even the littlest blotch of white in the wing
that's
and
the
everything.
way you do it. Yeah.
And it's been quite a few years since I saw the last white, and I have not seen any white.
Well, you may have gotten rid of it. That's the thing. Even if
So
these
it's possible.
Yes, it's possible. It's just difficult. And I am probably jaded from decades of dealing with poultry people. I know they're not going to do it. The fact that you've done it is commendable and extraordinarily rare.
Dedicated to getting rid of anything that showed white, period, no matter how many there were.
Exactly. And then, of course, most people don't know what it is. People are, oh, it's just modeling. Oh, it's modeling. I'm going to make a modeled variety. Make $1 million.
Yeah. Good question. I'm hoping I'm not knocking you off your train of thought.
No.
But I just thought about it. Okay, my black-breasted, you call them black reds. I call them black-breasted black reds. A lot of people call them brown reds.
Old folks call them furnace.
No, these aren't actually furnaces. In the wing bow, the saddle, and the hackle are all real dark crimson red.
Okay, well, then that's not red-black. Now, are the main wing feathers, do they have color, or are they all the main wing feathers solid black?
It's
are they
crow
wing?
wing. Crow wing.
Okay, yes, then they are. They're red-black, yes.
Okay, I got a question. When they're real young, their first plumage, they all have one white feather coming out of the wings. But as a molt, they drop them out and I never see white showing up ever again.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
What is that?
That's the function of the E allele. E does that. Certain forms of extended black, in fact, most forms of extended black, there's 6 or 7 different forms of extended black, but they almost all do that. You see that in all of the black cochins, black Langshan, black Hamburgs. Yeah, they all do.
They just drop them and I never see it again.
Okay, that's a function of the E allele. Okay, if you think about it in the down, those chicks are not solid black. They're light on the underbelly. The end of the wing will be white or yellow on the down of those chicks usually.
Yeah, they're not solid black.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's the same thing. It's just an extension of that color breaking. Basically, you can say that's baby coloring. But what it is, it's the feathers imitating the coloring of the down, and that's a function of the E allele.
Okay. Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
I was a little worried about that, actually.
No.
Okay.
No, and the most common way that you see progressive whitening is at the base of the tail feathers on the males.
Okay. Yeah. Hope I didn't knock you off.
No, not at all. It's the same topic. Not at all. I was on some kind of rant, I believe, with people breeding models that aren't.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, I probably needed to be knocked off.
I want to make sure we cover this really well because they don't understand the difference between dominant and recessive white, and they obviously don't understand the detriments of progressive white. So I just want to make sure we cover this really good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. Of all of the whites, dominant white is the one where you can have the healthiest birds. The recessive whites also cause health problems, just not as severe as progressive whitening. So that's why you'll see in all recessive white lines, they're usually not quite. I mean, people say, oh, mine are hardy. But if you compare it to the exact same bird without the recessive white, they'll have a slight edge.
Growing up, everybody who had white, and I didn't have white, so I never knew from experience. And I always thought they were full of it. They would say, I didn't like the whites. They seem to be weaker. They would
They are.
always express different
They are.
weaknesses within them. They were always weaker than the rest of their birds.
This is common in Phoenix. Your silvers, your golds, your red duckwings will often carry recessive white because there's also that Japanese form of recessive white. There's both forms of recessive white actually in the Phoenix because one comes in from an outcross made a long time ago. But anyhow, so a lot of these colored varieties of Phoenix carry recessive white. So if you have been breeding, let's say, red duckwing Phoenix for 6 generations, and your red duckwings are pretty strong for the breed, and then you get a recessive white one, it will be noticeably weaker. Even if it wasn't bred out of recessive whites, even if it's just a recessive white that appeared in your reds that were carrying recessive white. And it's doing the same thing. Recessive white knocks out the melanic production, and so it interferes with cell production. And so it interferes with a whole host of organ and immune functions.
So is it recessive white or dominant white that hides other colors?
Recessive white hides all
Okay,
other
that's what I was
colors.
thinking. Okay.
Yeah. So if you want a solid white bird and you don't want recessive white, that's where you've got to know about autosomal pheomelanin because you've got to breed a clean silver and then you add dominant white.
Okay.
Now, of course, this stuff is not secret. The industry figured this out a long time ago because they want white birds for meat production. So like white leghorns, white rocks, white Cornish are the standard that everything's bred on.
But those are dominant white, right?
What they've done is they've got both. Most of those production forms carry both recessive white and dominant white because they don't care if there's a problem. Now, most of your white leghorns will be dominant white. Some lines carry recessive white because they have to do egg production, and recessive whites tend to not lay as well. But when you're talking about meat production, Cornish, so you're talking about Cornish and rock, most of those are recessive white because one, they're not going to live that long, and two, they don't care. Now, some of their breeding lines are dominant white that carry recessive white that they cross and get recessive whites out of because they care about their breeding line. They've got to be able to get egg production out of them to produce the hybrids.
Yeah.
And most of your leghorns, if you take a production type white leghorn, most of them are going to be carrying barred, Colombian, blue, and modeling in addition to dominant white. And they'll be silvers. And if they're a good clear line, then that's a source of the inhibitor of autosomal pheomelanin. But most of those are not good clean lines. If you look at production white leghorns, you'll notice that most of them have brassy hackles. Even on the hens, they'll have brassy hackles and shoulders.
Yeah.
And that's because they've not bred out the autosomal and pheomelanin mahogany because it doesn't matter. That's not going to saturate down to the skin and cause any discoloring or anything with the final product.
So if we have a white bird with the yellowing hackle and saddles, that's the autosomal pheomelanin.
Yeah,
Okay.
and possibly mahogany as well, especially if it's a real dark, deep yellow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we see a lot of that.
But like I said, my favorite color varieties are all the red and whites, but those are made with dominant white. I don't like recessive white. I despise progressive whitening because it just makes the bird so weak. It's just a weakening factor. And the more you let it persist, and the thing of it is, and we'll touch on this more in another episode, but we're coming upon a time when we're not going to have the luxury of keeping a bunch of weak lines sitting around that we're shoveling antibiotics and expensive food into. We're coming upon a time where things are going to be like it was in Vietnam after the Vietnamese War, where we have to put our poultry back together from whatever scraps are left over. And it's going to be a real damn tragedy if everything left over has that damn progressive whitening.
Yeah, exactly.
Because talk about a problem to breed out.
Because it'll affect the immune system, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Those birds are always, and they may not be super delicate. They may not be like falling over dead, but if you compare them to the bird without it, they are going to be that notch down, just like the whites. And the more of the progressive whitening they express, in other words, the more modifier factors that are there to bring it out, the less eumelanin they're producing, the more the health problems increase. So the more of that you see in a line, the weaker that line is going to be. The red-shouldered Yokohamas are horrible.
Okay. Progressive white, would you say it increases genetic defects too? The expression of defects? Does it have any control over that?
No, because
Okay.
what it's doing is it's affecting the cell production. It's just affecting all melanin production, and melanin production is part
So
of
it
the
doesn't
partial.
affect Mendelian type traits.
No, it's not going to cause things like crooked toes or split wings or extra spurs on the comb or things like that. No.
What about fertility? Has an effect on that, right?
Terribly. terribly affects the fertility, especially the more of it that there is. And it also affects egg production, which of course is then going to affect fertility. And it can also cause, I've noted in the lines where it's the most extreme, it will make the eggs shells bad.
Thinner?
Yeah, because all of these functions have to do with melanin. We think of melanin as a coloring agent, but melanin is much, much more than that. Melanin is not just a coloring agent. Melanin is essential to a whole lot of the organs of the body. So the precursors to the melanins that we work with, to the color melanins, also are involved in the production of organ cell tissue. So if you knock out that production and you reduce it even a little, then that means the organs are not functioning to their fullest. And so the reproductive organs in the hens, the ovaries that are producing the eggs, if they're not running at 100%, then that's going to cause the potential for deformed and low fertility eggs, and a low number of them too.
Now, I know it does something to fertility and the inside organs and the eggs, hatchability. Yeah.
The same.
Okay. So if we're looking at the biggest signs for progressive white would be white in the hens and their wings usually. People like that. Okay. White in the tail of roosters. Splash birds. Some people call them spangled. They're not spangled. You got a little white and red going on. Those are splash.
Real quick, that picture you showed me of the bird you got out of your red line that you said you all would call spangling and I would call modeling.
Yeah.
That bird had both progressive whitening and modeling. That was modeling on that bird.
Yeah, right.
But he also had progressive whitening.
Right.
So I just wanted to be clear. They can express both things. And most of your spangled lines express both things.
And that's why I got rid of them, because not only could I not get the consistency in the spangling, it's like you said, the first year they just show a little bit of spangled. Okay. They look beautiful in their second and third year. After that, they just kept getting whiter and whiter to the point when they were white with specks on them. Couldn't stand it. Yeah, that's the progressive white.
That's the progressive whitening. That's right.
Okay, and then the other progressive white would be if you pick up a hen and you open up the wing and you see this little blotch of white, that's progressive white too.
Yeah, or solid white feathers.
No, I get that, but sometimes they don't understand why they get this little shade of white showing up in the wings. Okay.
And especially even more so at the base of the wing, the base of the feather, at the root of the feather.
Yeah, because I see some red roosters with the white wing base.
That's right.
That's
that's
crazy.
Yeah. I hate it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That's ugly. Yeah.
And the reason I hate it so much is because I fought it so long. Some of my original experimental work was I crossed red-shouldered Yokohama and with various lines of Phoenix to figure out what color form was under the red-shouldered Yokohama. And so I then fought that for years in those lines, trying to breed that out and breed that down and figure out what was going on. And it was just a mess. Initially, I thought, oh, it's blue. I'm going to be able to make blue varieties. I'm going to make models. I thought all these things at that time too. And so I was going to breed these color varieties of the Yokohama, and they were just a big pile of garbage forever. And now that stuff is out there because other people have done that, and you'll see online periodically, and I can see them, and I know exactly that's had red-shouldered Yokohama putting it in the past. And it was just a long nightmare is the reason I have that reaction to it.
Never thought the whites was such a big deal. I knew that they had to be bred out. I didn't like it myself, but I think it was the first time I talked to you. I brought it up about the different variations. You called it progressive white at the time. I didn't even know that. Your reaction was, kill it, burn it, get rid of it. And I was like, whoa. And you weren't even laughing. You were serious. I'm like, okay, well, got something going on here.
Put it in a chest and drop it to the bottom of the ocean. Yeah.
I love it.
Treat it like it's a vampire. Cut off its head, burn it, stake through the heart. Yeah. I suspect that some of the Germans may have bred out the progressive whitening and bred up dominant white on some of their lines.
Oh, yeah?
Because they've got some that look like they will live.
Is there anything about progressive white that you think they need to know? You don't realize how bad I want to cover this because I want to make sure people understand how bad it actually is because they actually breed for it.
Phoenix people do too. I love those variegated ones. That's my favorite. I'm like,
I'm more and more convinced that the reason everybody's crossing and fusion is because they're getting weaker. They're getting that progressive white. They're running into problems. So they're convinced that they can't breed them pure.
Absolutely. If you've got a deleterious gene, that's what these are. I've not used the word yet, but if you have a deleterious gene and you keep intensifying the line with a deleterious gene and other hidden deleterious genes start to come out as you inbreed, because that's what inbreeding depression is. You're going to end up with a bottleneck from which you can't recover.
Okay, one of the things I tell them to do to guard from deleterious genes is to do the test matings so they can figure out what's in them, clean them up from there, decide whether they want to move forward with them or get something else.
Or whether they even can fix it.
Yeah, but they have to do the test matings to find that out. Once they figure it out, because if both sides have the same deleterious gene, they have a problem. If one side doesn't, they can work through it. Hopefully none of them have it, and then they can move forward. It's just about doing the test crossing. So what do you think, Tony?
Kenny, you got to understand in these fowl, progressive white is not...
You're too far away from the mic. Wait, you're too far away from the mic.
All right, I'm too far away. I'm sitting I'm leaning back in my chair.
Yeah, too
Progressive white is not the only problem that you have. But the progressive white that he's talking about, I hear what he's talking about, because I'll tell you where this comes through. Is you see some of those examples that you had, the spangles. Let me tell you something. What's the American flag called? All those little 50 states are spangling. That's what spangling should be. But in spangles, the moment you get that spangling, they will become lighter and lighter as they go. And they call it gay. They will become gayer as they go.
Yeah. He says that our spangle, which is actually modeling in the proper terms, doesn't have the right spangling to hold it all together.
Go to the American Poultry Association, go to their standard, and go and see the definition of spangling.
Tony, I get that. I totally get that. He's a poultry geneticist, probably one of the best I've ever seen. Okay. There's nobody that matches Brian Reeder. His terminology, because he's dealing with domestic chicken people, is different than ours. His terminology of modeling is just the genetic term. The actual color, when we look at our standard, our terminology of the bird is different than his. He understands that. It's just that his way of describing it is different than ours, but it's the same thing. The spangled gene is not a real good gene. It's not a proper gene. It doesn't have the right genetics to hold it all together. So what we're seeing here is if you look at the body of the bird, for the most part, it's what we would expect from a spangle in the hackle, in the saddle, in the wing bow, that kind of thing. But if you look at the tail, how the tail went white on them, or you open up the wing, you see all those white feathers, that's the progressive white that's coming through and destroying the color.
You've also got something else here. You've got to understand. Proper spangles are black-breasted black reds, not black-breasted light reds.
No, I get that.
Female that you see there, she should not be spangled. She should be a light red. You see the one on the left-hand side? She should be a light red. She shouldn't be a spangle. A spangle should be a black-breasted black red.
No, I totally get that. That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about the progressive white today. Okay. Yeah, that's completely different.
The progressive white that you've got here in the south, and he refers to the sweater fowl, which he's correct with, and Jimmy East Sr., he was one of the breeders of them. Slick Lizard was another one. They all had wheaten hens. Now let's get down to the hens. We're not talking about the roosters. Black-breasted light red is a wheaten hen. They had wheaten hens where this white was coming in. And yes, it does get out of control. He's right. It does get out of control. You've got to watch it. And you're going to get the standard right. You've got to help these people. You've got to get rid of that progressive white. Yes.
That's exactly right. Now, the conversation I had with him was if they got rid of the white, then there would be no birds at the show.
Plenty of birds at the show. Read them right. The Grove white hackles that come from Tommy Serrano, the females are proper wheaten. They don't carry that white in them.
No, I totally agree. So what's the question? I do believe there'd be enough people to show up because some of them are going to have the proper color. What's more important, the attendance or the preservation perfection of the bird? Are we just accepting things just so we can get people to show their birds in the shows? Or do we really want to improve and preserve the breed? That's my question.
That's why you write a standard. It's a standard of perfection. You're looking for perfection. That doesn't mean that every bird is perfect.
That's right. Okay, so they're adding
a disqual, or they're adding a detrimental point to the standard. Shouldn't be there.
I know it. Yeah. So what's going to happen, Tony, is people are going to think that it's part of the breed. They're going to breed for it and ruin the breed even more than they are right now.
Kenny, some people, behold the gamecock in his splendor. Pray do not improve him away. And some people will insist on doing whatever they're going to do. And
Yeah.
no matter what you and I say, we can try and give them some advice. But no matter what we say, some of them are going to do what they're going to do anyway. The main reason for it is they're not culling well enough. If they were culling well enough, they would cull this trait out. It should have been done years back. It's probably come through 5-10 generations by now. So it's very difficult to get rid of now. But if it had been culled way back when it should have, it wouldn't be here.
I did it. Let me pull up this picture here. And then we talked about it on the show a little bit when I was talking to Brian. Okay, this is some birds I got from Bruce Barnett. When I got them, they had a lot of white. I don't have a good picture of the hens, but they had a lot of white in the wings. And the cocks had white in the tail. And at the time, I thought that was normal and I liked it. I thought it was kind of attractive. But the more I bred them, the whiter they kept getting, and it just went out of control. So I immediately started breeding away from the white, and I got them to the point when they weren't white anymore. Just like the pictures on the bottom here, they weren't white and they weren't showing any white. So that means that people are going to have to change the way they breed, the way they select. They're going to have to cull harder. When they go to buy birds, they're going to have to buy birds without the white.
Correct. That's what it's about. And I'll tell you, left to its natural progression here. If these guys were fighting those roosters, excuse me,
they
were fighting them. The weaker ones, which are the ones with the white in them, would be the ones getting killed off. So nature would take care of it.
Now, that is Brian's pet peeve, is that, it's ugly. It's very deleterious in that it does weaken the bird. Now, the problem here is a lot of people don't see enough of a weakness to get excited about it. But like he said, if you compare the proper bird with a bird with white, if you pay attention, you do see a difference in their constitutional vigor and everything. Okay. Yeah. But they don't look hard enough. And then what happens is when they start having issues, what do? They bring in new blood. They go, oh, my birds are getting weak. They're having issues. So what do? They outcross and fuse, do some crossing to add new blood, think they fix everything. Yeah, they think outcrossing is the panacea to all their problems. It does fix the problem for a little while, gives them a little vigor, but then they go back to where they were. So they're not really understanding what they're doing. They're understanding when they breed birds and they start to have problems, what that means. They're not able to analyze the results and then make the changes that they need. They just add new blood. That's the answer to everything around here, Tony.
That's right. What they do is with the first cross, they get hybrid vigor. So they think they've got it all. But then your second cross doesn't even come to 100%. It's below 100% on your second cross. Hybrid vigor is fine once. Once you've done the crossing once, and then you don't have anything more. You should have stayed with your original lines.
See, now let me talk to my audience here, because what do you guys hear from me about hybrid vigor? Word for word from Tony, that's where I got it from. Okay. And then every breeder and every geneticist that I follow has confirmed everything that Tony said. I just wanted to acknowledge that, Tony, that I've been preaching those words for a long time.
Good. You've been a good student, Kenny.
No, you're a good teacher, Tony.
And you haven't branched off far on your own. So well done, man.
I just stick to the science, Tony. I don't make up things that aren't true. I don't create problems that aren't there. I just stick to the science. And when I see a problem, I look at the science. What's that telling me? And then that's what I fix.
And that's what he brings to the masses, because it's important for everybody to know. Quick question for both of you. What if you have an all white bird? How do you tell whether or not it has progressive white in it?
Okay, just so you guys know, it's on the front end of YouTube right now is the full version of that little video I just showed you. It's only going to be on the front end for a little while. That's actually a master's class video that I'm working on for our members. I'm not even done with it. So watch it, check it out. But one of the things Brian says is some people will have progressive white and they'll just keep breeding to the white so much that they become an all white bird, but it's a progressive bird. The more progressive, the worse it is. And then in that same video, he breaks down the difference between dominant white and recessive white, and the fact that there's multiple versions of recessive white, and that dominant white is weaker than a colored bird, but it's way stronger than a recessive bird, and a progressive bird is weaker than all of them. So he kind of breaks that down, and I'm going to put a whole program together that's going to really explain it even more, and that'll be for our members here pretty soon. I just felt like it was important to get that out into the front end, let everybody see what's going on. And the reaction I've been getting since I put that out this morning was amazing. People are going, oh my God, I didn't know this. Or you mean this and you mean that? Oh no, I didn't know. So it's waking people up. This is so important, Tony. This is what's going to ruin the breed more than anything, is this progressive white, because they just breed for it.
Detrimental trait. If left to nature only and the people not interfering, nature would take care of the problem.
Yeah, because hawks and animals would prey on them because it'd be so flashy.
That's right.
They're not going to get this bird into the standard the way they're doing it. It's going to be impossible. I've talked to numerous people, and they're saying no way they're going to get them in. I've heard a number of people call them up and try to give them advice on how to get them in, and they're not listening to anybody.
Kenneth, listen here. Just go to the British standard. If you study the British standard, that'll tell you. Refer to another standard. In other words, that's the way people learn, is you take one textbook here, another textbook there, and you learn from your textbooks.
They say it's not changing the bird, but if you look at their standard, it's completely different than yours, and it's completely different than the Old English game. They're changing the bird.
Trust me, Kenny, they are trying to change the bird. They will never change the bird. Those stupid people will be long dead and gone, and the birds will still be around.
Oh, I think they'll be around. They won't kill them all, but let's get them to look like American games, because I'm not so sure they are.
You want me to tell you what I genuinely believe? I believe that the game fowl, if you go according to the standards and you do it correctly, is actually a proper form. That's the way that he should be. That's the way that he was given to us. That's the way that he's going on to the next generation. Don't interfere with him. Leave him and assist it from one generation to the next. That's it.
I'm getting Tony all worked up here. This is how we talk on this porch.
That's what it's about.
Remember that time we were in someone's living room and they saw us arguing like this? He thought we were fighting and he left the room because he was afraid, oh my God, Kenny and Tony are in my living room having a fight. Tony and I look at each other and go, he doesn't know us very well.
You got to learn from other people. I don't know whether you heard me talk about the judges that helped me in South Africa. Let me tell you something. Those were excellent, good game fowl people. A guy by the name of Barney Barnard. Barney Barnard was an excellent game fowl person. Got a branch that actually set up in South Africa. Barney Barnard did it. And he was a good guy. He had a lot of money. He was a multi-millionaire. But he loved his game fowl, and he had some of the very best that I've ever seen in my life. He had good chicken. He wasn't the best judge. He was one of those guys that never wants to learn. He knows it all. But it's not about him. It's about the standard. You've got to interpret the standard, and you've got to give the standard through. And the standard, if you'll see, this story that you're talking about with the white, go back to the British Poultry Standard and go back years, go back 100 years, and you'll see that they didn't allow it in then. And if they didn't allow it in then, it was done for a reason.
Yeah, there's an argument out there. The old Earl of Derby fowl were white, and they were good fowl. How can it be so detrimental?
I've got Derby Reds. The Grove white-tackles that I have are Derby Reds. You with me? From the old Earl of Derby. They do not have one single white feather in the tail or wing.
I was looking at some of the old Gamecock magazines from the 50s and 40s and 30s that I had, and I was comparing them to some of the more recent Gamecock magazines. We're talking about the covers. I couldn't find any of them that had white in the tail at that time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Man-made trait. Like the standards that you're talking about at the moment. Somebody's trying to hijack the breed. And if they're trying to hijack the breed, what do you do with hijackers? Take care of them.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for showing up. I hope you learned something. I hope this changes the way you breed and select your birds and see that there's a better way to go, that maybe this idea of white in the wings isn't really the right way to go. I hope the people doing the standard maybe change the way they're doing things, and maybe we'll have a better chance of getting them in. Tony and I do want them in. We don't care who does it. We tried. It didn't work out, but if I know Tony the way I think I know him and I know myself, I'm not caring who does it. I just want it done right. Everybody goes, I'm just happy if they get in and everybody can participate. That's fine, but the standard is the standard. The bird has to match the true standard, and you can't have a million standards, and what do you have, okay? I will not be happy if these birds get in there with the name that they're proposing and white in the wings. I could be totally wrong. I'm speculating here. It's my guess that the reason they're going with a pea comb light red with yellow legs that has white in the wings is because that's all they got. And they want to use their birds.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they've been around for 5 minutes and they know it all.
Yeah. So they don't have the bird that we're proposing. They want to put the bird that they raise in the standard. They're not going to make it happen. Yeah.
So because they wield a little bit of power doesn't give them the right to set a standard which is not a correct standard. I've seen what's happened, how the breeders developed over the years. And there's one thing, Kenny, let me tell you something. As many fools as we got, and as hard as they've tried to mess them up, these chickens are actually strong enough to come through on the other side.
Maybe the gene pool, but what they'll look like at the end, that's my concern.
Yeah, and let's go again. Herbert Atkinson. Pray, behold the game fowl. Okay. Pray, do not improve him away. So those improving guys, they're the dangerous ones. And he knew it. He knew it in those days. I'll tell you where you referred to that statement. It's in Herbert Atkinson's books that he wrote, which is the Old English Game Fowl, which is the big one, and then the one that the Oxford Old English Game Fowl Club bought out. And that statement is reproduced in both, in its true form.
I'm not changing the breed. I'm just adding white.
You just put a frill on it, that's all.
A frill.
You gave it a white feather.
Yeah. We made it look pretty. Okay.
You gave it a white feather.
No,
Don't give it any white feathers, Kenny.
Should I add white feathers to your standard?
No.
Okay, Tony, stick around. Thanks, Tony. Thank you guys for visiting with us. I hope you learned something. I hope this makes a difference. We'll see you guys next week. Okay, say bye, Nancy.
Bye.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you again for joining us on the Bred to Perfection podcast show. This show was brought to you by the Breeders Academy, where by becoming a member, you can increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and take you and your fowl to the next level.
We can also show you how to create a strain from hybrid crosses or mongrel flocks, and help you to create, maintain, and improve your present strains. We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel anytime.
To join us at the Breeders Academy membership website, go to www.breedersacademy.com.
Best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
While you're checking out the Breeders Academy, make sure to sign up for our newsletter, The Breeders Bulletin. We provide a lot of free bonus materials and some great information that will take you and your fowl to the next level. Well, that's it for now.
We hope you join us next time for another episode of Bred to Perfection. We'll see you later.
Bye.